Hi, I'm Joni Patry, and welcome to my YouTube channel. Well, today I want to talk about something a little heavy, and that is Saturn, because Saturn is heavy. But I want to talk mainly about the stationing of Saturn. Saturn is going to station, which means it pretty much is standing still. And it's going to station to turn direct. Saturn stays retrograde for approximately 5 months, give or take a little bit of time there. And I want to give you what Saturn's been doing, because Saturn is the planet that really, it makes things happen. Let me put it this way, for good or bad. But I got to say, it is a heavy, heavy feeling when you're dealing with the Saturn transit. You know, so many people talk about the Saturn return, when Saturn returns to where it was when you were born. Of course, that all happens to all of us around the age of 27 through 30 years old, and depending on where it was in its retrograde cycle when you were born. But this station is what's so important. Saturn is about to station November 4th, coming up here pretty soon, 2023. And I want to give you exactly what you can expect globally as well as personally. Now, before I continue on, I want to remind everyone to sign up for my free newsletter. Go to galacticcenter.org. And I have to announce I am getting ready to launch a Patreon page, and this is going to happen October 20th. You will not want to miss this. I am serious about this. I am bundling into some beautiful packages where you can get my services for a fraction of the price. So pay attention, go to my Patreon page. We're going to let you know, everyone know, October 20th is the day. It's a great day astrologically, by the way. But looking at that, I want you to know, though, that with this Patreon, I'm going to give you offers where you can get discounts on my beautiful jewelry. If you haven't been noticing, I've been wearing all my new jewelry. This is from my personal line at Satya Jewelry. And there's beautiful crescent moons and suns. And Christmas is coming right around the corner, and you can get great discounts from my Patreon page with my jewelry. So check that out. You're going to be amazed. Shooting stars, being able to contact and talk to me personally, and a lot of information that's going to be uncensored that you can only get through my Patreon page. So you're going to want to see all of that. So let's continue on and talk about what Saturn is doing and what this is all about. Why am I talking about Saturn stationing? Because generally when a planet is transiting through your chart, and it goes retrograde back and forth, it can sometimes cross over one of your natal planets 3 times. Not always, but generally the slower moving planets have 3 hits, such as the 3 outer planets and Jupiter and Saturn, and sometimes the faster moving planets. But let me just say that this Saturn transit is so potent that I have to bring this up. So let me give you a little background of Saturn's transit in the past year or two. So it was in March. It was in April of 2022, by the way, that Saturn first entered into Aquarius, where it is currently right now. And Saturn stays in a sign for approximately 2.5 years. So it first entered into Aquarius, this is April 29th, and then it retrograded. It turned retrograde at 1 degree of Aquarius, and then it went back into Capricorn July 12th of 2022, okay? But then it went back into Aquarius again, where it continued to stay in Aquarius January 17th of 2023. So that's when it entered to stay in Aquarius. So it kind of touched its foot in and then retrograded out, then came back in January of 2023. Now, it was March 17th through March 27th of 2023 that Saturn progressed up to the degree mark that is most potent for the United States as well as for President Biden, that I keep talking about. Something's going to happen, because that's where Saturn hits the United States moon. Yes. So the United States moon sits at 7 degrees of Aquarius. President Biden's K2 sits at 7 degrees of Aquarius, and President Biden's moon sits at 7 degrees of Aries. So his moon and K2 are being simultaneously aspected. This is a big deal. But nothing of an enormous event happened the first crossing, which was around March 15th to the 27th. Why? Well, I'm sure there were repercussions, and I'm sure it wasn't easy for Biden at that time or the United States, but it was not stationing. And here is a law in astrology. When a planet stations, in other words, it stations during the time that it may be moving, and then it turns retrograde, because it's got to kind of stop in order to move backwards. So in that transition from forward movement to backward movement, it pretty much stands still. And when it does, it will remain at that degree for a long period of time, a couple of months, yes. A couple of months at least, it will be at pretty much the same degree. So, but that's one time. It's when it's moving forward and stops to go backwards. But then it's going backwards in its retrograde motion. Then it stops before it goes forward. And that's what's happening with Saturn at this particular stage in its cycle. And that is going to be when it turns from retrograde to direct, and it stands still in this process, and it will be again at this critical degree. But at this point, unlike the March, it was only at that degree from March 15th to the 27th, give or take a day. But now it's going to be at this degree stationing for almost 2 months. A little over 2 months, yes. So I'm giving it between a degree. So Saturn became around 7 degrees in September. And it will continue to be 6 degrees till December. So it's like September to October, November, December, almost 3 months that it's pretty much around the same area of the zodiac standing still. So it's really probably about 2.5 months to be exact, but we're not counting each day. Around these times, it is going to be, so September through mid-December, the end of September through mid-December, Saturn is 6 to 7 degrees. But the difference now is the stationing degree. The station makes it, I am not kidding you, at least 100 times more intense. It is that intense. So that is a law in astrology. If you see a planet that crosses over in a transit and you don't see a big result, you will when it's stationing. That's the law. It may kind of have an effect, but the stationing degree is huge. So we're looking at the fact that Saturn is again, but this time stationing 6 to 7 degrees, okay, from September through around the 3rd week of December. So it will, now let me give you something really interesting. Okay, so of course it's going to be 6 degrees when it stations in November, and it's going to be November 4th. but November 24th through the 25th. Watch those days. Why are they so critical? Because Mars will be around 6 to 7 degrees in Scorpio. So Mars will be squaring exactly Saturn. In the heavens, Saturn, Mars sit at 6, 7 degrees. Saturn, Mars. And here's a chart for you to look up to see what I'm talking about, this degree marking of Saturn with Mars. And if you'll count from Mars to Saturn, where it is in Scorpio, Scorpio to Sag to Capricorn, Aquarius, that's 4 signs, that's a square. And if you count back from Saturn to where Mars sits, that's 10 houses or 10 signs. And that means Saturn is squaring Mars. So essentially what we have at this time is a mutual square where Mars is squaring Saturn and Saturn is squaring Mars. So that's called a mutual aspect. Because in Vedic astrology, actually, Saturn's most powerful aspects, aside from a conjunction and an opposition, are 3 placements from itself and 10 placements from itself. So this is the 10th aspect. So Saturn is applying to Mars with 100% power. And Mars is applying to Saturn, its 4th aspect, which is 100% in power. So we have these 2 planets aspecting each other with 100% power, but Saturn stationing, which I can't even put it on a level of what extreme it is. So this is going to be November 24th through the 25th. And also I notice on that day that the sun is also 7 degrees of Scorpio. So Mars and Sun are pretty much exactly conjunct, which is intensity, and they're exactly aspecting Saturn, squaring it. So this is giant. I want you to know that this is going to cause a great huge event. And even if you put up President Biden's chart, which we might as well put up his chart here as well, you will note that the Mars-Sun conjunction will be approximately on President Biden's Sun and Venus, which are around the degrees between 5 to 7 degrees. So here's the other thing. If you have any planets natally in your chart that are around this portion of the zodiac, Saturn's aspecting it and Mars is aspecting. Where am I talking about? 6 to 8 degrees or 6 to 7 degrees, give or take 1 degree orb of Scorpio and Aquarius. Okay, if you have any planets in Scorpio, if you have any planets in Aquarius, these degrees, look out. You're going to feel this so intensely. And please, please, remember I am talking about the sidereal zodiac. I am a Vedic astrologer. I do not do tropical astrology. Vedic astrology are the true placements of where the stars are. And you've got to use these placements to know what I'm talking about. Seriously, don't be applying your Western chart. It's inaccurate to what I'm doing. So let's just say, now, even if you do have planets around this, look out. You're going to feel this intensely. There's going to be major events, setbacks, delays, issues, problems. You're going to want to take care of yourself. But I thought I might give you a little indication as well as to if, according to your ascendant, how this will affect you, whether or not you have planets there. But if you have planets there, you're going to want to look into this and you're going to want to take heed onto certain things. And you know what you're going to feel it? Saturn is responsibility and Saturn is heavy. So you're going to feel some kind of heaviness, you know, health or or lack of energy or setbacks, delays, endings. That's Saturn, okay? So let me just say, if you have, and remember to look for your sidereal ascendant or your moon sign, this is what I'm talking about. And if you don't know what they are, you can go to my website, galacticcenter.org, and go to the free chart calculator, put in your information, scroll to the very, very bottom, and look up where it says AS, that's your ascendant, that's what I'm talking about, or the MO, that's your moon. Look at both of those. This will make a lot of sense. So if you have an Aries moon or you have an Aries ascendant, then Saturn is in your 11th house, but Mars is in your 8th house. You might find some problems with friends, some separations or endings or blow-ups with some friends. And if that's not the case and you have an older sibling, this could be the issue that's going to come about. If you have a Taurus ascendant or a Taurus moon, then Saturn is in your 10th house, which means there's major shifts and changes in your work, delays, setbacks, blow-ups. And Mars is in your 7th. So look out, relationships are going to be a big surprise, and maybe there's a major setback in a relationship and or a business. If your ascendant or moon sign is Gemini, then Saturn is in your 9th house and Mars is in your 6th house. This could be a time when you reassess everything according to your health. You have a new health regime. Plus, I gotta say, if your father's still around, there'll be some kind of difficulty or setback or problem for your father, okay? If your ascendant or your moon sign sits in Cancer, Saturn's in your 8th house, so will be setbacks and problems in money that's due to come to you, whether it's an inheritance or a settlement. And look out, there can be some problems with your children if you have children. If your ascendant or your moon sign sits in Leo, then you're going to have issues around relationships. There's setbacks, delays, there's things you've got to work out. And as a consequence, there could even be a move, a change of residence, as Mars is going to be in your 4th house. If your ascendant or your moon sign is in Virgo, then you do need to take care of your health as Saturn is in the 6th house. Be careful driving, you're accident prone while Mars is in your 3rd house. And you might find there's some incidences maybe with a brother or sister. If your ascendant or your moon sign is in Libra, then Saturn's in your 5th house. It's kind of a time that you feel blocked creatively, or there's issues with children and problems going on with the family. The 2nd house is family. That's where Mars sits. If your ascendant or your moon sign sits in Scorpio, then Saturn's in your 4th house. This means problems with where you're living, your real estate. Things could be breaking down. Watch out for that. Or if your mother's still around, be aware she might need your help, okay? And Mars is in your 1st house, so don't be so impulsive and impatient. That will cause you to have accidents or problems. Take it easy, take it slow. If your ascendant or your moon sign sits in Sagittarius, then Saturn's in your 3rd house. Mars is in your 12th house. So looking at that, there can be issues with brothers or sisters. They may have some health issues or have some problems, as well as be careful how you communicate with people. There could be some people that are talking behind your back with Mars being in the 12th. If your ascendant or your moon sign sits in Capricorn, then Saturn's in the 2nd, Mars is in the 11th. Be careful with your money. You may find that there's less than you had originally thought coming in, and there can be some problems with the family and or an elder sibling. If your ascendant or your moon sign sits in Aquarius, then Saturn is in your first house. This has been a heavy time for you. There's been a lot of responsibility. And I do find that there could be some problems with your parents, your mother in particular. But Mars is in the 10th, so be careful what you say around the workplace. Don't be too abrupt. Think before you speak. But you could also be getting a new job, so watch for that. If your ascendant or your moon sign sits in Pisces, then Saturn's in your 12th, and you've been digging and going through a lot of things from the past, but what will come of it is probably a healing, and there might be some issues with your father. So if he's still around, or maybe even things come up from the past concerning issues around your father. And one more thing for Pisces, be careful traveling, because both of these houses deal with long distance travels. So with that, I have covered all of the signs. And most of all, I want you to be aware of around November 24th and the 25th for you personally, because there's a lot going on. And one more thing I do want to add with this. Saturn is till, let's see, November 24th, Saturn is in the Nakshatra Dhanishta. It's been in Shatabishak, but it retrograded back into Dhanishta for a very short time. And then by November 24th, Saturn will go back into Shatabishak. So while it is here in Dhanishta, Dhanishta is ruled by Mars. So this makes Saturn more warlike even, more aggressive, more problems. And then when it goes into Shatabishak, which it will, November 24th, and it's going to be in that nakshatra for almost the rest of the time. Not quite, but almost the rest of the time it's in Aquarius for at least a year. Then this is the nakshatra that I see with Saturn being here will bring around great discoveries in healing, in the healing art. Shatabishak is the 100 healers. Plus, I do suspect there's going to be more and more discoveries with alien life, with extraterrestrials. We're going to get the information. Now, if you don't want to believe it, you don't have to, but the information is going to speak for itself. And yes, this is reality. We have to be open to what's real and the truth. And this is what Saturn is going to bring to all of us. So watch those planetary stations. Remember, when a planet is stationary, it is so much more powerful. And even when we're talking about the faster moving planets as they move and they go into their stations, if you have any planets conjunct those stationary planets, whether they're slow moving or fast moving, then you're going to have an event if they're stationing the degree of your natal planets. That's very, very important to take a look at astrologically. And it's amazing because it is a true rule that works 100% of the time. So with that, I think I'll close. Remember, if you want more information about my Patreon page, you can go to my website. I'll have it up. And most of all, we'll give all the information by October 20th, how you can check into my Patreon page and become a member, become part of our club where we unite and talk about astrology and the future of the world and you. So thank you for joining me today.